Right, welcome to brew day of the first time I'm using my own recipe, first time I've crushed my own malts, and first time using a couple of these hops. I'm going for a Galaxy and Waiheke hop American style IPA, or New World IPA, I guess is what I call them. The ones from Aussie land. So I think Waiheke's a New Zealand hop, and Galaxy is Australian, I believe. So I'm going for 25 litres to ferment. So I've just put 30 litres in that bad boy. I'm going to turn it on and it's going to cook the malts for 60 minutes once I've measured them out. Over there, that thing there, you can see is my malt miller. So I'll show you a brief clip of me milling the malts when I've weighed them up and things like that. Yeah, it should be interesting. I've absolutely no idea whether this is going to work, whether the app I'm using to make the recipe is any good or accurate, or all that sort of stuff. So it should be around the 6%, 5.8 I think it was. If I get my efficiency right, it should be a 5.8%, quite light IPA with passion fruit, citrus, kiwi, and then some stone fruits coming through with that hop combination. So we'll see. Hopefully it shouldn't be too bitter. The IBUs on it aren't at the high end, and the IBUs is International Bittering Unit, I think. That's how bitter a beer is. And on the app it's coming through as relatively low. So what I'll do is I will put my recipe and the style guide up. I'll edit it in now, here. And then hopefully that will explain a little bit of what I've been talking about, and just show you what I'm aiming for, and the little table that hopefully you saw on the style guide should talk that through a little bit. So let's get brewing. So here's the setup I've got for my milling. So I've got my 25 kilograms of Maris Otter. We're going to have 5 kilos of that, I think. I'll check. Measure it out, whack it in the malt miller, and mill it. That's the plan anyway. So I need 6 kilograms of these. There's 2 so far. So we'll whack them in. First time using, so keep my fingers crossed. Oh, it's a good sign. Awesome. I'll lift this off and see what it looks like underneath. Barely malted. Barely malted at all. Or barely crushed even. Right, got to work that one out. Right, cracked it. That gap is adjustable, and so I've made it a bit narrower, which means that, whoa Christ, the stuff going through is a bit more crushed now. So hopefully, look at that, it's not too crushed, because I've not actually done any research on how crushed you should crush your malts. But now, as it goes in, so this is the second batch. So I've got 6 kilograms of, in this recipe anyway, 6 kilograms of Maris Otter, 450 grams of Vienna, 450 grams of caramel, and 100 grams of oats. This is quite fun. And here we have the contents of what's going to be in our mash. So it's about 7 kilograms. It's got caramel, Vienna, Maris Otter and oats. Hopefully I've got enough of everything. I might chuck a few more oats in there to maybe get a bit smoother mouthfeel, because 100 grams just barely felt like anything. And yeah, let's get going. I've just opened the Galaxy hops. They smell fucking gorgeous. Good recommendation, Evan. Oh yeah. Okay, so explaining my hop schedule. The earlier into the boil your hops are added, the more bitter or more bittering they pass into the beer, because the oils break down and stuff. I did know this, but it slept since then. The higher the alpha acids, the more bittering flavours they can impart onto the beer. That's not to say that really high alpha acids can't give your beer flavour and aroma, and not just bitter, but it depends where they're added. So I'm adding the Galaxy as my bittering hop, so that's the first addition right at the start of the boil. It's 25 grams, 20 grams, then 30 minutes from the end of the boil, and it's a 60-minute boil. I've got another one of 20 grams to get a bit more of the flavours. Then right at the end of the boil, before you cool the beer, you chuck in the bits of flavour. So I'm mixing the Waiiti with the Galaxy there to make the flavour and some aroma. And then the dry hopping is what really brings out the aromas, and I'm adding a ton of Waiiti and Galaxy then. But what I found interesting is if you see these, so these are the Waiiti, and it's really flaky and really dry, whereas the Galaxy hops, which had a higher alpha acid, were really oily. So I wonder if that's a common thing of really high alpha acid means more oily hops or not, or whether I've just got a really leafy batch rather than a buddy batch or something. I don't know. Just a thought as it came to me. Okay, so malts and flakes added, and that smells delicious and looks delicious. It's probably the thickest. It's probably the thickest I've ever had when it comes to mash, and I think that's likely because the first 2 kilograms I ground probably a bit finely, but it is looking and smelling good, so I'm pretty hopeful. Okay, here we go. Moment of truth. Time to test. Time to test what Vinny calls redneck invention. Right. Oh, sorry, not doing this very well. Putting my hooks in there. I can't do this one-handed. One sec, hang on, I can do this better. Okay, moment of truth, out the way. Need to test what Vin calls redneck invention, which is to lift this fucking thing up. Okay, so if all goes well, this will just lift straight up. Sweet. Down. Boom! There we go. Now that is some good redneck inventing right there, bitches. So that is heavy as balls when you haven't got to do it, and without lifting that up to get in there, I am well pleased with that. As always, got part way through and forgot to carry on filming. So we are at the end of the boil. We've had our first wort hops added, which they're whacked in just as I turn the thing on to start get going boiling, which is something new I'm trying, I've not done before. We had our mid-boil hop additions done. I have sanitised the fermenter, ready to go. I've chucked the immersion wort chiller in there so that it sanitises. I'm not using my counterflow because I didn't get any ice, or Eddie forgot to get any ice at the shops, which is acceptable. Yeah, so then we're ready. So I'm going to turn that off because I should have stopped heating, which is great because, the sound, now it's stopped. Bliss. Right, well, we're going to get this counterflow, immersion chiller going. Rightio, before I get the immersion chiller going, last edition hops go in. Some bubbles through them. So then they go in, and those are the ones that release loads of flavour because the oils don't burn off. Jesus, wet. This is a cloudy piece. Look at that. Don't normally have that. I wonder if that is because milled it too finely. Possibly. You can put bits in the brew to make that all collect, called finings, and it stops it from being as cloudy, but I don't really give a shit about it being cloudy, to be brutally honest with you. I need 2 hands for this. So we have our immersion chiller cooling it. We have our final hop additions added. Here's where I would get a, when I've got my everything sorted for the counterflow, I'm going to put something in so I can use this, the outdoor tap, as a way of getting cold water around it, not just using the ice. So I can switch between hose pipe and 8mm, 10mm pipe, which is what I've got attached to it in a minute. Anyway, that aside, when I've got that set up properly, I'm going to buy stuff to make a hop back, which should impart oodles of aroma into the beer, and that will, so basically as the hot wort comes out of the lauter, mash tun, it goes through a chamber containing the hops that you would add, that I've just added now. So that all the water just circulates through that really high, so the high temperature that goes into it, and then it goes around your counterflow, water chiller comes back in, and that's where you can just put it straight into your fermenter, but I would probably send it around a couple of times just to get the temp right down to fermentation temperature, and that just means that more of the aromas from the hops get onto it, and also, so basically, think of it like this tin, goes in here and out here. And what I could basically do, take the lid off and just cram a ton of hops in there. So if I wanted to really, open the bottle and crack, hits you with hoppy scent, and that's probably what I'll do. And I'll try that at some point. I'll make it. That's one of the next projects, aside from improvements in the conditioning cupboard. But there you go, useless facts of the day for you. Okay, and now we have the beer down to temp. Did say 22, now it's popped back up to 24.5, so I'll have to cool it a little bit, but it is cooled, coming out of there, and going into the fermenter, and then in a little bit I'll do a whirlpool to make sure that there's plenty of oxygen in there for the yeasties, and then we'll pitch the yeast. Done. And taking a gravity reading, post boil, you probably can't see, but it's slightly spinning around, and we have 1.052, which is a little bit lower than what I was aiming for, but it should give us a beer that, if the yeast is active enough and drops the sugars down to where I want to, then it will give us around 5% beer, 4.8 maybe, something like that. I'll work it out. Yeah, I've just done the maths. If my yeast is active enough and drops the sugars to about 1.015, which is what I'm hoping it'll get to. So if it drops to 1.015 after it's fermented, then the beer will actually be 5.5%, which is pretty good actually, because I was going for about 5.8, 5.9. So if it's 5.5%, then I've pretty much got the efficiency that I wanted out of the malts. So yeah, pretty chuffed. So far so good. Well, it wouldn't be a Loki brew if there wasn't a slight problem. So on the tap, as it comes out of the mash tun, there's a mesh tube. It's got a proper name, I can't remember it. And that kept blocking because of the amount of that stuff that was floating around in the wort. Kept blocking it, and normally when that floats around I can just get my metal spoon and just scrape it along, and that's enough to free it up, but there was that much of it that even when I was doing that, it wasn't coming out, so just nothing was coming out of the tap. So I've actually had to sanitize my hands, get my hand in there to massage it out. So fingers crossed I've not put anything into this beer to contaminate it. I sprayed, you know, in and behind my nails and got all in there. Typically with it being in isolation, with COVID and all that, I don't think I had any hand sanitizer anywhere, so that would have been useful, but just had to use the good old soap. Went inside, washed my hands with soap, came out, sprayed them with sanitizer, which is probably not the best thing for my skin because it's feeling a bit tingly now, but yeah, so now it's in there, time for the whirlpool. Okay, so sanitised spoon, so then when I give this a good spin, gets loads of oxygen into the wort, which is bizarre because you want to try to avoid oxygenation and things, but get this whirlpool going and get lots of oxygen in there for the yeast without trying to bash off the thermometer that's in there. Thermometer that's in there. Good, that'll do, I'd say. So a nice whirlpool going. We will then, I'm just going to take a temperature reading of it and then we'll pitch the yeast. A very nice, easy pitch of yeast. So this is Cephali 05, which is an American ale yeast. I'll get out the shadow. And all you do is that. Easy peasy. Lemony squeezy. Then put the lid on. Okay, as you can see behind me, the fermenter is now wrapped in my quite thermal insulation to keep the temperature as stable as possible. You can see the lights going on nowish. There we go. That the fermenting monitor is connected to the internet and is recording, monitoring. For some reason, the cable, it kept not getting power. So I had to put the A change cable for that, B at the USB on pressure. So at one angle, I had to pull the USB tight on one angle so that it actually connected and had some power. It's really, really sensitive, so I'm expecting it to come loose at some point and disconnect without power, but I'll check on it again tomorrow. It should still work as a fermenter regardless, although it's not got a valve so that when I release off stuff to take gravity and things like that, I have to release the pressure for the whole thing. So I'll have to look into that because it's only been used for 2 brews prior to this and I store it well, so a bit concerned about that, if I'm brutally honest with you. That's something that Base got me, so I don't want that to bugger up, but I'll have a look at it once it's not in use. And so now it's a case of leaving it. Hopefully, see, it's disconnected again. So it lost some connection, and maybe that was the internet connection rather than the power. Are you going to go back on? Yay! So that's that done. We need to name it. I was thinking One West Waikiki from that old 90s cop show, One West Waikiki. Anyone watched it? Oh shit, but brilliant. Yeah, named on a postcard. Cheers all. Bye.